Hey everyone, it's Thorn, and in this video I want to address a question that I get asked all the time. Everybody gets asked this question all the time. I feel like this is like the big question across platforms when it comes to practicing witchcraft, regardless of kind of how experienced someone is too. And that question is, how do I establish a daily practice? So we're going to talk about that. I want to start by telling folks that my most recent book, The Witch's Path, actually has an entire chapter about this. So if you like what you hear in this video, please go pick up a copy of the book. You can get it at a library. You can find an audiobook version if you prefer those. They're out there. There's an entire chapter full of additional tips and ideas for how to make this a livable, doable thing. So go check that out. So to get to the meat of the thing, I want to think about for a second why it is that that's such a thorny subject. Like, why is that such a difficult thing to do? And the analogy that I always use is one of going to the gym, which I think a lot of folks can relate to if you've ever done any kind of like physical activity at all, or if you just watch people. Watch when New Year's rolls around, right? And everybody has their gym resolutions, okay? Or your friends or your coworkers or whatever. It's like, well, I joined a gym, okay? Which is not to shit on that, that's fine. But what always happens, folks sign up, they come up with plans for themselves, like how they're going to totally revolutionize their new year. And maybe it's like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym like every day or 5 times a week, or I'm going to totally overhaul what I'm eating. I'm going to like overhaul my life and make it about like fitness or whatever. And almost without exception, people don't follow through on that. And that's actually true kind of goal setting generally, like the more I think about it. This is a thing that I see in teaching positions too. It's very common to have students, come after class or whatever and be like, hey, I really need some help turning my grades around, or I'm struggling here. And there's this intention to like overhaul, like, oh, well, I'm going to be good now. I'm going to come to office hours, or I'll get tutors, or I'll do homework every night. I'm never watching TV again. Right. And it just isn't realistic. And the same thing happens when we discover witchcraft, we get interested in witchcraft, we decide we're going to practice witchcraft, or something happens in the witchcraft practice that we already have where we want to recommit ourselves or be more serious or whatever. The first thing that people do is they try to overhaul their lives to centralize this thing, witchcraft. I'm gonna meditate every day. I'm gonna sign up for like a yoga class at the community center. I'm gonna start approaching covens. I've got this giant stack of books on my nightstand. Like, I'm gonna read every day. I'm gonna start going to community events. Like, I'm gonna save my money and go to festivals. Like, that's what people do. And I'm hoping that by kind of telling these stories like this, you see what the problem is here. And that's why my clickbaity title here, don't have a daily practice. Don't focus on a daily practice. Don't worry about a daily practice. And it's because we need to resist, I think, that knee-jerk impulse to have something be all the time. Like, in order for something to be good, it has to be daily. It has to be all the time. It has to be consistent. And I've got books on my shelves, books that I've worked through, books that I really like, that will tell you, well, just, suck it up and do it. Like, you have to just do it. This is about discipline. And like, if you're really serious about being a magician or a witch or whatever, then you'll just sit down and do it. And I can just tell you as somebody with a teaching background, or just like hanging out with people, or being a gym rat for years, like doing competitive athletics, like, if you talk to people that way, what you're just going to do is drive them toward failure. And maybe you can feel self-righteous at that one student, like once a lifetime, who pulls it off. But your typical person who's asking you for help, if you're telling them, well, you have to just do it and it has to be every day, you're setting them up to not be successful. And that's what we're doing as practitioners. If you're going home and you're telling yourself that your witchcraft isn't valid, if you're not doing it every day, or your practice doesn't look like the witch down the streets practice, you're setting yourself up for failure. So what I tell folks is, and it's just because it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. What I tell folks instead to do is strive to be regular, not daily. You can build toward daily. And I find that when folks end up with something that really is meaningful and powerful, the dailiness kind of becomes an inevitability for a lot of folks. When you get to a point with something where it feels good to do, you want to do it, you're in a rhythm, it's easy, it's kind of second nature, you don't have to think about it, then it's easy to go, okay, a daily practice. But when you are getting going, and for the majority of your life, because realistically, even if you love something and you're good at something, life just happens. If you have children, if you've got elderly folks in your life, if you ever get sick, and everybody gets sick eventually, some folks have chronic illness that they deal with, you're going to have stuff that just comes up in your life. And if you insist on holding yourself to this daily regime, then where does that leave room to feel successful and to feel like you're growing when life just happens? Things just happen to us in our life that sets us off course. And I shouldn't even say off course, because that's normal. That's just part of being alive. People get sick, people die, stuff comes up, your kid has school functions, you have to travel, your spouse needs something, your pet dies, like things just happen. And you don't want to be beholden to a practice that creates a feeling of disappointment and failure when you can't maintain it. So instead, strive for regularity. If you're doing something regularly, right, as an athlete, it's better to do 2 or 3 sessions of whatever it is, training, working out, going to the gym. It's better to do 2 or 3 sessions a week than like try to do it every single day and then, pull something or break something or stress something or burn yourself out and then have to take weeks or months off. Like that totally just like messes things up. You're better off doing something for a few minutes on a regular basis than once a week for 6 hours or every day for an hour until you injure something and then can't move, right? And then don't have the motivation to keep going. So if you are starting something as a witch, I would say, like, if you're brand new, pick the thing that interests you the most right now. Maybe it's spellcraft, like writing spells, trying spells. Maybe it's reading and research. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe it's some kind of like moving magical practice. Lots of people turn to yoga or martial arts, and there are better and worse kind of ways to look at those other sorts of practices and incorporate them into your witchcraft. But pick the thing that feeds you. Maybe it's keeping a garden. Maybe it's, you're exploring herbalism. Maybe it's learning more about crystals and, using those in your practice. It really doesn't even matter. But like, pick the thing, nature walks, whatever, and do that. Focus on doing that in a regular way. So for example, something like meditation, you'd be better off trying 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 3 times a week than you would being like, I'm going to do half an hour every day until I die for the rest of my life. Because that person going from 0 to every day isn't going to make it. Like, I don't need my tarot cards to tell you that. Pick a thing that really engages you, that really makes you feel excited, and find a way to add that to the life that you're already living. If you try to overhaul your life for anything, you're going to hit walls more frequently. They're going to be harder walls. Find gradual ways to bring things in a way that kind of feels natural, and get into a rhythm with that. Do that new thing for a month and then build on it. Maybe add one more new thing, or do that old thing for a little bit longer. Can you meditate for longer, right? Can you read more intricate or complicated books? Can you, if you're trying to do something like journal, right? Like, can you increase your page limit or your writing limit, whatever. Okay, like whatever the thing is that you've picked, all of that stuff, all of those things that you hear when we talk about like goal setting. And I use the SMART model. If you've been in like corporate environments, they do these in schools too, right? Picking goals that are specific and measurable, achievable. I always forget the R, relevant and time sensitive, like time bound. Pick goals that you can actually measure, that are actually achievable. Instead of going, I'm just going to have an amazing practice and I'm going to be just like this badass witch, say, nope, I'm going to meditate twice a week. Can you measure that? Yes, absolutely. Right? Is it time limited? Yes. Like, is it relevant? I'm going to meditate twice a week. I'm going to write in my new book of shadows once a week. I'm going to pray, to my deity or whatever, like, twice a week in the mornings. Like, pick one thing. Figure out how you can reasonably incorporate that into the life you already have, and then build on that over time. That's the key to developing a daily practice, is to totally just trash the notion that you need a daily practice. Instead, reframe it as a regular practice. You will find over time that the dailiness of your practice comes more easily. You fall into it. You want to do the things, or they naturally fit. Allow the other pieces in your life to move so that they can naturally accommodate this thing that you've introduced. If you start off hard and fast, it's usually just a recipe for failure. So that's my big advice. If people are telling you that you need a daily practice, hit pause, set that aside. It's not that they're wrong. It's that framing isn't helpful. So I hope this was helpful. Again, check out The Witch's Path. There's a lot more in there with some really specific kind of exercises and ideas too for how to go about doing that. But cut yourself some slack. Pick one thing, do that one thing for like a month or two, and then build on it. Don't take something from 0 to every day, because you won't. I spend enough time in gyms. Like, nope. I hope you all are well, and I'll see you next time.